welcome into Double Overtime presented by VC Ultimate. The Western Ultimate League season is officially concluded. Seattle Tempest are your repeat champions. We just got 1 week of the PWL regular season to go. I'm Jenna here with Sascha Vogel. Sascha, I think I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. I cannot believe that it is already this. We're already to the point where the Western Ultimate League season is done and they have crowned a champion. Where has this year gone? How is it already June? I don't understand how time works anymore.
I don't either, but here we are.
College season is done. The semi-pro seasons, at least for the WUL and PWL, are wrapping up. Club season is ramping up. I know that there's tournaments already like happening in the Bay Area like next weekend, because that is apparently how the Ultimate calendar works. It just doesn't seem like it ever really stops, which is kind of absurd. Also means that there were 10 games between the two leagues that happened this past weekend. The most of this season, similar as a week last season. And PWL and WUL schedule makers, can y'all talk so this doesn't happen again? Please and thank you.
It's a lot. Like last week, we had 2 games. 2. And that's it.
Sure.
Next week, there's 1.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just like spread those out a little bit? Put a few games last week, a few games next week.
Something. I mean, right, you can't fault the championship weekend for having 4 games in the Western Ultimate League, 6 games in the PWL. We're going to talk about the Premier Ultimate League in the back half of our show, given that the only game that is happening this upcoming weekend is indeed in the Premier Ultimate League showcase game between Columbus and Atlanta at Poultry Days. Can't believe Poultry Days is already happening. How is it summer? So, Sascha, should we just dive right in, talk about the Western Ultimate League?
Detroit. No, we have to talk about the Detroit Mechanix, Jenna.
Thank you for the reminder for our Mechanix Minute.
This week on the Mechanix Minute, Detroit suffers a loss to the Indianapolis Alley Cats at home, 21-15. There were some bright spots in this game, Jenna.
I mean, it's only a 6-point loss.
It is only a 6-point loss. Bright spot, they outscored Indy in the third quarter 5-3.
Call it there. End the game there.
There we go.
Take it
in
there.
The third quarter.
Stop the count.
Yep. They also had a higher huck percentage. Indy only completed 71% of their hucks, while Detroit completed 75%. And Detroit also had a higher red zone efficiency. Indy had a 74% red zone efficiency, while Detroit had 87%.
Ooh, pretty good.
They were still only 3 for 17 on break chances, though.
Those break chance opportunities. What was it the other week? 1 for 19?
Yeah, 1 for
3
19.
for 17. If my quick math is right, that's something like 4 for 36. Just not great.
Not great. But hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Detroit Mechanix still.
That's Mechanix Ultimate for you.
Still without a win. What is new? I was also doing some quick math. I haven't actually looked at the stats. 87% feels like it's in the ballpark of like 5 out of 6. Pretty good. Pretty good. If only those red zone chances were on break opportunities as well.
Yeah. But I mean, like, let's see here. I'm going to look at the stats real quick. Like, it was a lot more than I thought it was. 13 of 15 red zone conversion percentage.
Okay. Respectable.
So 13 of their 15 goal. Wow. Yeah, 13 of their 15 total goals. They got to the red zone and scored.
So even though their huck percentage was better, their big play into the end zone wasn't quite there. Something like that.
Something like that. Maybe they hucked it. So they were 6 for 8 on hucks. Maybe they hucked it to the red zone, and then from there on those 6 chances, and then popped them in. Or maybe they didn't, because there was 2 that they didn't get. I don't know.
Yeah, something. Anyway, that has been our Mechanix Minute. We will continue to keep an eye on the state of the Detroit Mechanix until we are done with season 2, which, folks, we are getting down to the end of it. I'll put in a plug here while I'm thinking about it. This will probably be a more formal ask later. Sascha and I would love to do a mailbag eventually. We tried to do one last year and then didn't get enough questions. So we'll say it now. Sascha will post it on social media at some point, I'm sure. If you have questions for us, let us know. We would love to do a mailbag. If you want to ask about awards, if you want to ask about our best, worst predictions, there are options. So let us know your thoughts.
Into the WUL. WUL Championship Weekend. Happened in Seattle. There was Utah, San Diego, San Francisco, and Seattle all in the championship weekend. Congratulations to the Seattle Tempest for going back-to-back, winning the whole league. And yeah, in a rematch of last year's game too, against San Diego. Yes, first we can start with the first game of the weekend, Utah versus San Diego. An extremely high-scoring game, like highest scoring game of the weekend, and one of the highest scoring games of the season. Honestly, I think it was like second or third highest scoring game of the season, like in terms of total points played.
Yeah, because it finished 21-15. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a lot. That's doing the math. That's about one score every 80 seconds of game time.
That's incredible.
It's pretty fast.
And you'll note as we talk about the games that were later in the day and later in the weekend that the scores start to drop because the wind started to pick up. But it was pretty good conditions for San Diego and Utah. San Diego led by announced after this game MVP Kayla Hilton leading the way for Super Bloom. That Super Bloom offense, when it cruises, it is so good. I mean, there's a reason why they put like blowout scores on both like on all of LA, San Diego, and Arizona in conference play, and did a pretty similar thing to Utah. I think, nothing to be ashamed of for Wild. The Super Bloom is just that good, and they have rolled past basically every team they've played, with the exception of Seattle, and then also close game against Oregon in week 1. So solid showing by Utah, but as we expected, Super Bloom coming out on top. Any other thoughts on this game, Sascha? Any stats that jumped out at you or players?
I thought Khalif El-Salam had a tweet that was pretty funny to me. He was like, Utah's got the defensive player of the year and offensive player of the year on the team, but ran into the MVP.
It's true.
So
Kayla Hilton is very good, and so are Dina Elimelech and Alex Diaz and Chris Bajunas and Kelly Omoto and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
The rest of the
Julia
team.
Salvachon. The list goes on.
Yeah.
So that was first game involving your team in a loss. Second game, my team, San Francisco versus Seattle, also a loss, also by 6 points. And Sascha, I was not able to watch these games live, but had I been watching, I might have just closed out YouTube after the first little bit, because at one point it was 6-0 in favor of Seattle, and it was not looking good for the Falcons. It somehow got better from there, but still a 6-point loss, and only 13-7, right? I have that right? That feels right.
Yeah.
But it also feels like an absurdly small number of points to score for San Francisco, which I think is actually the lowest scoring output of any team in a game this season for the Western Ultimate League.
Yeah, it's at halftime the score was 8-4. So the second half was what's the word I'm looking for?
Slog.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like, I don't know, the Seattle's good. Going out to a 6-point lead and then winning by 6. I mean, they're pretty steady.
Yeah, and we'll get to some of the stats from certainly the final, which was the closest game of the weekend. Might not be that surprising. But Seattle, and this is something that I know was talked about, I feel like in at least the Discord, if not on Twitter, of like, how does Seattle not have any players like win? And let alone, I don't know if they had anyone even nominated for any of the outstanding like offensive, defensive MVP awards. And part of the reason is that Seattle is so deep that if you try and figure out who are their best players statistically, you're going to have a hard time because they're just so balanced. And so they're a really good team across the board, and they can beat you in any number of ways with any number of players. And that makes it their representation in awards under what it might otherwise be.
So I think we probably would have seen Sadie Jezierski in Offensive Player of the Year nominee had she played every single game. She only played 4 games this season and was averaging 4 assists per game in every game she played. The next highest, that led the league in assists per game. The next highest was Maggie O'Connor at 3.2, and Maggie was one of the nominees. So we could have seen a Sadie there had she played every game, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think last year, like Sam Rodenberg was one of the goal leaders for the entire league, if not the goal leader, tied along like Maggie O'Connor, for example. But again, too balanced. A lot of Seattle players like didn't even play every game for one reason or another. Like they didn't do like the road trip, or they didn't do Rocky Mountain Rumble, or some combination. And so it's like when you only play 4, 5, 6 games, that's going to dampen your statistical output. And when the nominees for certainly like MVP, O-Pody, B-Pody, and D-Pody were decided, or B-Pody was like self-nominee, breakout, that is. But like offensive, defensive MVP were at least partially nominated by statistics. You're going to miss out if you're as a balanced team as Seattle is. So that set up Seattle v San Diego in the final, as expected, as called, by basically everyone ahead of time. The two teams had played earlier in the season, had played last season. So previous 2 meetings, Seattle beating San Diego. Before we got there, we had the Sascha Jenna grudge match, 3rd place game. And Sascha, good thing that you didn't take my offer of putting a bet on this game, because San Francisco went on to win 14-10.
Yeah.
Sorry. Hey, Utah made it. That is progress from finishing last in the league last year.
I mean, I'm happy for them. I think their season was a success overall.
I do
personally.
Too. I also think that. But yeah, Falcons just a little bit better in this game. Again, wins starting to pick up a little bit. Falcons able to do just enough. There's a discussion, Sascha, I think, to be had. Maybe not at the moment, but maybe next week if we want. Around 3rd place games. Should you have them? What's the point of having them for these leagues? What's the idea around having them? Because it's something where there's a brief flurry on Twitter, or at least I saw a couple people talking about it. The lack of a 3rd place game for the announced PWL championship weekend, and sort of a compare contrast. We can talk about that more later, but at this moment in time, San Francisco Falcons, 3rd place bronze medalists in the Western Ultimate League.
Yeah. So yeah, congratulations, San Francisco, getting 3rd place. I don't remember how they finished last year. I know it wasn't super great last year either for them.
Both Utah and San Francisco missed out last year on championship weekend.
San Francisco missed out, by like 1 point, right?
Yeah, 1 or 2 point differential points to Arizona.
Yeah.
So I think they technically would have finished 5th last year, but they missed the championship weekend, and that's about where it mattered for San Francisco last year.
Exactly. All right, yeah. So now getting into the championship game, Seattle versus San Diego. It's a 13-11 win for the Tempest. This game was very windy, like
especially towards the end.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was in a word, wild. It was like a lot of, it seemed like huck and play D type going on, and which I mean is a viable thing. Not when you're doing fantasy. That's unfortunate for fantasy people when your team has a lot of turnovers because you get negative points for turnovers. We'll talk about fantasy in a minute. But yeah, super, super windy. Seattle like kind of came out and went up a bit on San Diego. And then like, I think near the end of the game, you could definitely see the legs of San Diego were starting to go out because they were playing Dina and Kayla and Alex and all like their top players, like almost every single point to be able to try to claw their way back into this game and try to win it.
Yeah, and the depth of Seattle proved out. We were hearing that they were running 3 lines in rotations, very similar to the system that Molly Brown ran in the club season to win their title. And it just ended up working out. And it also helps to have Jamie Erickson be very tall and able to get to some of those sky balls and save some of those floaty possessions. We'll bring Erickson back up a little bit later. And yeah, San Diego Stars did what they could. Dina Elimelech, oh my goodness, what a game. 5-2-3, if I remember the stat line correct. 5 goals, 2 assists, 3 blocks, but also ended up with only a +2 point diff or +2 stat differential because 8 turnovers will negate a lot of that hard work in the wind. And yeah, if you're like, oh, low scoring game, slugfest, yeah, just watch the end of the game and watch an observer's hat literally like be basically ripped off her head from the wind and get back to me after that.
Yeah. Dana played a lot in this game. She played 21 total points out of how many? 24. She played 21 of the 24 total points in the game. That's a lot of playing time. But I mean, she just absolutely killed it. And I think she led both teams in the goals scored that game. So yeah, I would say even with the loss, Dana would be my like finals, I guess you could say finals MVP, which I never understood. Real quick. I think the finals MVP should go to the best player on either team, right? I know like in other sports, it's like it's the best player that played on the winning team, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and that is often how it is done. But I hear you on the argument in the other direction. Yeah,
because like let's say NBA comparison, let's say LeBron puts up like a triple double in every game, but they end up losing the series, like, and LeBron's just going crazy, and LeBron should win the finals MVP. He did everything he did. He was the best player on both teams. Why wouldn't he win the finals MVP? Anyways, we don't have that award, but if I was to give it out, it would be to Dana.
That makes sense to me. And yeah, I mean, again, with how deep Seattle is, they didn't have a single player with more than 3 in any given stat, which just tells you just how balanced they are, again, across the board. And yeah, we say the same thing over and over again, but it's true, and there are reasons for it, and that has brought Seattle yet another title.
Yeah, once again, congratulations, Seattle Tempest. Those Seattle mixtape players have another trophy for their large collection over the past year or so.
Yeah, pretty impressive, the record of success out of Seattle, especially for some of those Seattle women matching players who have played on all of the different title winning teams over the years, whether Tempest or mixtape or what have you. So yeah, that it. I want to say it feels anticlimactic, but like we did have a championship weekend, And we crowned the winner. Congratulations, Seattle. A quick rundown of the other awards. We've kind of mentioned or in passing hinted at some of this, some of the awards for the league. MVP, I think as mentioned, Kayla Hilton from San Diego, well deserved. Statistically just a monster across the board. San Diego's coaching staff also won Coaches of the Year. Utah, as again mentioned briefly, but specifically Paige Kircher for Offensive Player of the Year and Molly Robbins for Defensive Player of the Year. As for your Breakout Player of the Year, Kaz Gazelle from Arizona, makes sense. The former D1 goalkeeper making an impact year one. And in a nice showing, the Western Ultimate League also offered up a Trailblazer Award offered to League Executive Director Felicia Yang, aka Lish. Which, yeah, it's kind of wild. We are at the end of a second full Western Ultimate League season. And I think there were real questions back in, say, 2020 when the league was supposed to get off the ground and it didn't, of what would happen. And the fact that we're here in middle of 2023 with 2 full Western Ultimate League seasons in the books is an impressive testament to all those who have worked hard to get the league to this place. And Lish is definitely chief among those names. So I think the league has been very grateful for her leadership, and we'll be curious to see how much longer she sticks around. Maybe she stays around as a new executive director for the coming years. But also, I will say from personal insight and having worked with Lish, having been on the board of directors for the Western Ultimate League back in 2021, there's a lot of hours that go in, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lish decided that, I've gotten the league to where it is. Maybe it's time to take a step back for a little bit. But I don't think it's going to be a situation like the PUL, Commissioner Dallas, where it's a last minute hire. I think it will be a more measured approach if Lish decides to step away now or in the future. I think it would be a measured approach to find a suitable replacement.
Yeah, for real. Shout out Lish. Doing a ton for this league, and she's so busy. Like, she was executive director commissioner of this league, she was a player on LA, and also was coaching the UCLA men's team as they were trying to make their way to nationals this season as well. Like, she's putting a lot of time into Frisbee, and yeah, and she's been doing a great job with it. So shout out Lish. Also, talking about Kayla Hilton with MVP, I think Kristen Pajunas had a tweet that really hit me that said, it says, the fact that Kayla Hilton not only had a season worthy of an MVP nom, but actually won the 2023 MVP award is incredible. It's been an impossible 2023 for the Hiltons, and every time she stepped on the field showed that she is the best player in this league. So, like, yeah, I fully agree. Like, I know it's been really rough with Goose and his big accident that he had, and being able to deal with that as well as come out and still be an incredible player is a testament to the strength and mental fortitude that Kayla has.
And it's something too where, and you love to see this, and you see it in any number of different sports, certainly nowadays, with how well athletes are able to take care of their bodies. Like, she is performing at the highest level, having already performed at the highest level as like a player on Fury for like, I don't know, like the last decade plus, like has been at the highest level of the game and has somehow found a way at this point in her ultimate career to take it up another level. World Games last year, Western Ultimate League MVP this year, just absolutely incredible. And yeah, all of our best wishes go out to Kayla and to Goose in his recovery. And yeah, I think all around, just a last note of brief reflections on the Western Ultimate League season. I continue to be so impressed by the Western Ultimate League. Yes, I am rather biased being based in San Francisco. having been on the board of directors back in 2021. But to come all this way, to have two clearly very successful seasons, to be able to build on your first season, to grow in terms of the number of games, to split into conferences, to have these awards set up, I think as a whole just demonstrates the level to which the Western Ultimate League has been able to step up to in a short period of time, all things considered. Again, the league was supposed to start in 2020. That didn't happen. Reset, Winter Cup in 2021, and all of a sudden we're middle of 2023 after back-to-back great seasons. And I'm impressed. Again, very biased in this matter, but I am very impressed by the strides that the league has taken since even when I first joined the board at the end of 2020, and sort of where do we go from here? What are the next steps? How do we get this league actually off the ground? And in the time since, it's been incredible. And, hopefully everyone gets a well-deserved break for at least a little bit, but I'm sure knowing the folks behind the scenes, season planning has already started for 2024.
Yep. And I cannot wait. I wish we could have it year-round, but I know that's not how it works.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're talking Premier Ultimate League. That season's not done yet. 6 games to briefly recap, and still a playoff spot TBD as we record on this Tuesday evening. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Our friends at VC Ultimate are proud to sponsor Double Overtime. VC proudly puts community over profit, focusing their support on initiatives that help promote inclusivity. As the first ever sponsor to back professional women's and non-binary Ultimate, VC puts its money where its mouth is when it comes to equitable action. VC also approaches product innovation intentionally to make more players feel like the Ultimate space is their own. Did you know that all VC core products are now 100% gender-free? If your team is in the market for uniforms or custom team gear, check out VCUltimate.com. Not only are they working to change the landscape of sport, VC's performance gear is the best on the field. Thanks to our sponsors of Double Overtime, VC Ultimate. And welcome back to Double Overtime, presented by VC Ultimate. We're talking the closing stages of the Premier Ultimate League season. 6 games this past weekend in week 10. And Sascha, gotta say, some of them felt like they really mattered, and some of them didn't, and some of them mattered for reasons that weren't obvious on the surface. Where would you like to start? Should we start with the undefeated, the lone undefeated team left in the league? Our Friday night showcase, Minnesota beating Milwaukee and claiming their spot in championship weekend. We talked last week that there could be chaos in the Midwest if Milwaukee beat Minnesota. There was not chaos. Minnesota won. I don't know if you can call it decisively, but we just got through talking about some Western Ultimate League semifinals that were decided by 6 points. This is also decided by 6 points. That feels pretty decisive to me, especially to finish out an undefeated regular season.
Yeah, I mean, I was low-key hoping for chaos. It makes things more interesting.
That's true.
But at the same time, I didn't want the chaos to happen because that would have been too interesting. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Would have made our job on this podcast a little bit harder tonight, that's for sure. And we're already recording pretty late for unrelated reasons. But congratulations to Minnesota Strike. Very impressive across the board. Obviously, the win over New York, the standout. TBD if that's going to be over another championship weekend team or not. And also TBD where Minnesota ends up in the seeding process. My guess is that it's probably maybe going to be by overall record, in which case we could see Minnesota get the number 1 overall seed. Sascha, any thoughts if Minnesota, undefeated, but maybe not the strongest team on paper, ends up with the number 1 seed? Similar situation that we had maybe to DC last year?
Yeah, I don't think they will end up with the number 1 seed.
You think they might use power rankings or something?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think they're going to be using the power rankings to determine seeding, and they're not the number one seed in the power rankings. I guess we don't know because we're not going to find out. We don't know yet. Power rankings for week 10 haven't come out. So
as of recording Tuesday night, if you're listening to this and they've come out, we haven't seen them yet. You're living in the future. Yeah, so we'll see, right? With seeding, it might be to your point, right? By power rankings, might not be. Speaking of power rankings, Austin, potentially big deciders for the power rankings for who makes championship weekend if they win one of their games on the road. And no, not so much. Double losers, less of losers to Philly, 18-13. Philadelphia Surge win over Austin Torch versus 22-11 New York Gridlock over Austin Torch. Sascha, any thoughts on these games or their implications? Neither was super close. Obviously, the Philly game was closer, but that game was still 9-5 at halftime, 14-9 at the end of the third quarter. So, Philly had some breathing room even towards the end.
Which game was first?
First game was, I'm pretty sure, New York.
So, here's my thought process here.
Let's hear it.
They lose by 11 to New York as the first game of their weekend, as first game of their doubleheader. But then they go to Philly and lose by only 5 at Philly. So, my thought process here is that New York's win over Austin is more impressive, I guess you could say, than Philly's, because Philly's was on the back of a doubleheader. So Austin technically should have been more tired and more gassed than Philly was. And to win by only 5 probably hurts Philly right here.
I think that's probably true. Also, I was thinking about, is it like a total point score difference where it's like, it's like maybe it was windier or colder or something. But no, the total points in the New York Austin game, 33 total points. In the Philly Austin game, 31 points. Okay, great. Toss that out because that's effectively the same. Only 2 points difference. And yeah, I think it does. And right, here's the question that we have to ask ourselves, and the committee has to ask themselves, even though apparently they maybe don't talk to each other. Everyone just submits their own 12 separate ballots, basically. Do you weight more the early season head-to-head win that Philly won, albeit over a potentially slightly depleted New York squad? But Philly won that game, fair and square. Philly won that game. Or do you then look more at the back half of the season, a more full-strength New York team that beats DC, that blows out Austin on the same weekend that they're playing Philly closer, and then does it lean towards New York? I couldn't tell you which way it's going to go, but I think that to me is the question here. Do you focus on the head-to-head, or do you focus on what these teams have done at full strength, which seems to bode in New York's favor? Sascha, do you have any opinions one way or another? You can also say, I'm not sure. That is perfectly acceptable because we don't know what the committee thinks either.
No, if I was a committee member, I would be putting New York over Philly. And that is not because I chose New York to win the whole thing, but it is just because exactly what you said, like the New York at full strength is looking better against common opponents than Philly at full strength.
Yeah, I think it's tough for me. I think I also probably lean New York, if only because I'm anticipating what the teams will look like at championship weekend. And if everyone is healthy and available, I think New York is the better team. Again, helps to have Cartagena and Mosquera when they are fit and available, because those two are very good. So I think it also, for me, probably leans New York, but we've seen decisions go other ways before in other settings. I think both in the PUL and in like USAU competition where head-to-head is prioritized. So I think it's a little hard to say. You in the future will have to tell us what the answer was. In terms of when we get those results. So those were, I think, mostly the games that mattered. We had a couple other. Let's save the one that is maybe the most news breaking for the end, Sascha.
All right.
Indy played Columbus. Columbus at Indy. Red won 17-12. Not a huge surprise here. Indy has looked quite good after their opening couple of losses. And yeah, good on Indy for finishing the season out strong. Columbus falling to continue to be winless on the season. And then Raleigh playing at DC. Maybe questions here about seeding again in terms of relative strength, with both teams already wrapping up their divisional titles. DC 15-12 winners. I think this is pretty par for the course. DC has looked the better team than Raleigh. I wouldn't be surprised to see DC seeded higher than Raleigh, even if it is the eventual 2-3 matchup that we end up getting. If, say, Minnesota goes number 1 overall in overall record and the wild card slots in at the 4, this might be a preview of the 2-3 matchup, or we might see it in the final if these two teams end up making it through their semis. So that's it for all of the games, except for a team breaking a 4-year streak, Sascha? Something like that?
Something like that. I don't know if we can
2019.
count. I don't think we can count 2 of those years though, because they didn't
Okay, fair enough.
play. But
at least 2 full seasons.
2 full
basically.
seasons. Yeah. This is Nashville at Atlanta. Atlanta wins 20-16. This is the first win for Atlanta since week 7 of the 2019 season. Also against Nashville, where they won 23-16. So congrats, Atlanta. You're getting there. And I have a feeling like this Atlanta team would be getting at least 1 win this year, because they look great. Especially through most of the games that they're playing, they've looked absolutely amazing the first half. They just couldn't finish out the game, basically. If we were to take the first half of every single game that Atlanta played and just that, I don't know exactly what the number would be, but
they'd be better off.
Yeah, exactly. It's the second half of the games that kind of get to Atlanta. But they played a full game. They came out and went up 2-5 in the first quarter. They were up 4-10 at half, and then 18. They were up by 8 after 3 quarters, 18-10. Notably, no Jesse Schaffner for Nashville, but I don't think Jesse would contribute to 8 points by herself, if that makes sense. I mean, it's a 4-goal deficit at the end, and again, TBD on how hard Atlanta was playing after already being up 8 goals late. Yeah. But Jesse Schaffner is very good. I don't know if she is 4 goals good for Nightshade. So yeah, I mean, good on Atlanta. And hey, we're gonna talk about picks in just a little bit. Maybe they'll get another one at Poultry Days, TBD. Yeah. But yeah, good on Seoul for breaking the streak. Now, if only the Detroit Mechanics could follow their vapor trails and find a way to win. So let's go.
All right. That is all of the games. I know it's a brief recap, but again, at this point, certainly my mind, and probably Sascha, your mind to an extent, is looking forward to championship weekend. And now with 3 of the teams already decided, and effectively 1 of 2 teams decided as a wild card, it's just a matter of which one. I certainly am already having my mind to that, thinking ahead to what will come. And speaking of what will come, Kay McGroom is coming back to DC, was on this weekend's roster, a late addition. This sparked some conversation, I know, from you and I, and from other folks on Twitter and in the Old Two World Discord, if you're a subscriber. Questions of, what are the rules around adding a player this late, since Cammy was not announced at the beginning of the season to be on DC's roster. Turns out there's not really any specific rules for the Premier Ultimate League, at least this season, as long as rosters are submitted. like at least I think it's 2, maybe 3 days ahead of the game, then you're good. It feels a little funky to me, but I mean, Cammy did play with DC before, and apparently she was out of the country, and now it's back. So I don't love it, but it's within the rules. So like, I get it. I just think it's a little silly to not have seemingly that much or anything around having like specific roster rules, because then it seems like if you wanted to, I don't know why you would do this, you could just turn over your whole roster like the week before, and like nobody could stop you seemingly in the setup. Again, I don't know why you would do that, but it just seems a little silly that it's set up this way. But also, hey, WUL doing things that are slightly unorthodox, not new, not remotely new.
Right. And like we don't have the operations manual. Like I've never read it, you've never read it.
It's true.
So we can't like officially say what the exact rule is, but I would assume that it's fine as long as they end up playing at least one regular season game, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think that there's
like not an only postseason edition. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that if there is a rule that it should at least say that if you're adding a player late, then they need to play at least one regular season game before the postseason. And
Cammy indeed was on Cammy the roster for the Raleigh game. So excited to see her back out on the field. She's obviously very good and will help DC in their quest to get back to the final and maybe even win the title this year.
Yep.
All right. Picks and picks review. Let's just do our picks first because we have one game as mentioned.
Our pick.
Thank you for the correction. Our pick for this upcoming week. Poultry Days Showcase, already mentioned Atlanta versus Columbus. We thought this might be a showdown of winless teams. Turns out one of those teams has a win. And Sascha, I'm just going to cut to the chase. I am picking Atlanta to beat Columbus. Even though it's on the road, they have a win, and I think they might add another one.
I also am picking Atlanta over Columbus.
Sorry, Columbus. We think that you're going to go winless this season. But hey, you have a chance to prove us wrong. So, good luck with that. In terms of picks review, because again, we did have 10 games this past week. And Sascha, it didn't go so great for you.
It did not.
Notably, that I correctly picked both of the Sunday games in the Western Ultimate League. I picked San Francisco to beat Utah when we had assumed those teams would be in the third place game, and they were. And I correctly picked that Seattle would repeat, while you picked Super Bloom to get the title this season. I also picked DC over Raleigh, and we both missed on picking Nashville, Atlanta, proving us wrong. So hey, Columbus, again, you can do the same. So Sascha, I think I have now, if I have it right, a 7-pick lead on you. And I think if I also have my math right, there are 5 games to go. Nope. 4 games to go because there's no third place game. So sorry, unless something changes, I think I have you beat this time around. I think again in picks after I just beat you out last year.
There's a lot of red with my name on it right here on this doc.
Yeah, this week was not great.
It was not great.
So anyway, we have one game coming up, and then the PUL Championship weekend. We'll keep you updated on any updates we hear on anything Western Ultimate League related. Last year we had like all-star games and rosters and teams. Season, 1.5. TBD, we're going to finish out for the Premier Ultimate League season. And then it might be a wrap, and TBD on the state of the Mechanix Minute after that. But before we finish tonight, we have, as per tradition, our highlight of the week. Coming from the Western Ultimate League champions, Seattle Tempest, late in the game, in the closing stages as Seattle is trying to close it out, Jamie Erickson is the outlet on the sideline and then unleashes a perfect floaty throw that receiver is able to chase down. And you gotta love it, Sascha, the celebration before the catch. sometimes that goes terribly wrong. In this case, it worked out just fine for Seattle.
Yeah, it was. First of all, the catch by Jamie, I don't know if any other player would have been able to get it just because of her length. It floated up into the air because it was pretty windy, and it just kind of popped up, and she just went up and grabbed it and then released in perfect huck. Like, it was great. Also, shout out to Jamie Erickson as well. You can tell that she has been working so hard on her throws. And because like that's been something of a struggle for her in the past. And if you follow her on Instagram, she's posting all the time of her going out and just throwing and throwing and throwing and throwing. And it definitely showed on that highlight.
And if you're going to be part of a team that's going to win back-to-back titles, that's what you gotta do. So congratulations again to Seattle Tempest, your 2023 Western Ultimate League champions. That'll do it for this edition of Double Overtime presented by VC Ultimate. We'll be back next week to recap a single game and preview the Premier Ultimate League Championship weekend. And we will know by then, I sincerely hope so, who all will be attending the championship weekend. I've been Jenna Weiner. He's been Sascha Vogel. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.